Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this episode 260. I'm joined by my well-rested co-host who has enjoyed the holidays, and he is back with a vengeance. Prez, that is at _Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing?
I'm good. Enjoying using all my Strickland PTO and bailing on the podcast every other week.
It's good. The holidays are a time to be enjoyed with family and not by being miserable about the Knicks. So, that's good to know. That's good to know that you got your time off and you enjoyed it. I did not have time off, but we're not going to talk about that. What we're going to talk about is the announcements I have to make. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. So give that a follow. Check that out. That is at thestrict.land on Instagram. We also have a YouTube page where you may or may not be watching this. If you are watching it, please hit the like button and then subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That would be a big help for us to get to 1,000 followers. We also have a Patreon, which I'm sure you know about. You can subscribe to it. There are a number of tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this pod that I host every single Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. And you get access to the Strickland mailbag, hosted by Drew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, and back from his labor fighting hiatus, Dallas Amico is also his co-host. So that's what you get with the $6 tier. There is a $9 tier. That gets you access to Strick and Roll, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful weekly articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. So without further ado, let's get started. I don't know. We can start wherever. The Knicks have won 3 in a row. I did not love yesterday's game. I also am sympathetic to the idea that sometimes they're going to play annoying basketball games over the course of an 82 game regular season, and they got
It
out of
was
there.
so evident after like the first 5 minutes that they were just like, can we just mollywop these guys and go home? And the Spurs were like, we're going to lose, but we're going to annoy the fuck out of you.
We're going to try really hard, and we're not going to stop trying. Keldon Johnson's super annoying.
Oh my God. His fucking slingshot, like moon balls that when they go in, they like go off the screen and drop back down like directly up from the hoop. And then Jeremy Sohan, who's basically like the fucking Sith underling of Marcus Smart, just being fucking annoying for like 80 feet, except he's like half a foot taller, which somehow makes it worse. He's totally going to be like, I get it now. Like when I was doing draft writing on him, sometimes I would Twitter search. Like my timeline was mostly like, oh, what an intriguing toolsy defender, and like, oh, he's from Europe, and what an interesting player. And then I would Twitter search him, and it was all college hoop fans who had played against him, who were just like, oh, what a fucking dirty shithead player. This guy's the worst. Oh my God. Like, what an evil human being. And I was like, God damn, like, is he really that bad? But now seeing him, like, this guy was shivving every single Knicks player and getting away with it. He's definitely going to be one of those annoying to play against, dope to play with guys for like 15 years.
Yeah, if he can score.
If he can score.
He's annoying. He also he got the dumbest yesterday on Julius. Julius made. We'll talk about Julius. I'll just say this. This is what I again. I'm very happy the Knicks won the game. I'm not unhappy the Knicks won the game. I'm not. Any thoughts of Victor Wembanyama in a Knicks jersey have they dissipated weeks ago. They dissipated before the season even started. If we're being real, but like. I saw a lot of Julius, like, awesome effort, even though he didn't shoot well. Oh, he had 4 blocks, he had 3 steals. I saw a lot of like, oh my God, we would never have won this game if not for Jalen Brunson. Thank you, our Lord and Savior, for winning this basketball game for us. And I just got to say, I reject both of those things entirely. And the first one is not related to anybody other than Julius. I didn't think Julius played a good game at all. I don't think he played a good game. I think he played. Look, offensively, sometimes you miss shots. I didn't really have a big problem with his offense yesterday. Sometimes you miss shots. His end game stuff continues to be like why we continue to put him in situations like end game isolations is a little bit beyond me. But okay, fine. Like I can live with the offense. He's been on a heater for like what feels like a month and a half. You're allowed to have a bad shooting game. I don't care about that. I thought his defense yesterday was terrible. Like it was really bad. He got back cut. He got back cut very early in the game by Keldon Johnson, and it's like, okay, one, if you're gonna have Julius play, like if he's gonna be defending, literally their best scorer, they're like their one scorer who occasionally goes off. Can you can it be a good Julius night? Can it be like a night where he's locked in? He's not locked in, so like I'm watching that. I'm like, can Thibs just put like Grimes on him and he can guard Sohan because Sohan's literally not doing anything. Like if Julius wants to do nothing on defense, I'm cool with that. Just put him on Jeremy Sohan. Like I don't need him on Keldon Johnson,
who, by the way, plays Julius Randle's position. So this isn't some weird like us asking for some galaxy brain cross match here.
Yeah, no, and he guarded him. He guarded Sohan in when we played them last week.
You know what's especially funny about that? Now that I think about it, like you know how often we ask, like, oh my god, engage Julius by making him work on ball, right? Like cross match him, and this is how you knew it was one of those nights. Like to Thibs' credit, he's probably like, oh, maybe one way I could get Julius engaged is get him on Keldon, their on ball guy, and Julius was just like, nah, I'm gonna we'll be fine. Like
Right.
that's basically his attitude, and it almost shows like this isn't a like the blocks he had. Several of them were really impressive athletically.
Well,
And
the chase down he had was great.
oh my
that
god,
was like a great.
my
That was
jaw,
a great effort.
my jaw. I was like, I didn't know he could still do that. Not that he's like some old guy or anything, but I was like, damn, I thought that was like only Lakers Julius or whatever. But you could like that's kind of an example of one of the like Julius is best when his objective is clear and he has decided I will do the thing and there's not multiple competing factors, and a chase down is a perfect example of that, right?
And
There's no
he
like
lost the ball. He lost the ball in that play. That's the other thing.
yeah, exactly, which is also like very on brand. It's like, fuck, I will make up for it with this targeted act of redemption. Like it's very simple and he just puts his mind to it and he does it. And it's all the other shit that's like, well, I gotta watch my man. I gotta watch the decoys. This is the Spain pick and roll, or who's Mitch? Are we switching? Ice, but like that's the shit that he's and versus a team that sucks. Like you could tell he was just like, nah, whatever.
Yeah, and it's the most annoying thing because like the Spurs are a team that no matter how much they suck, they're gonna run like 7,000 things on every play. They're gonna run like 3 sets, and they're gonna make you do all this shit, or they're at least gonna try to do a bunch of shit. So you've got to like give the token effort and just be aware of stuff. And Julius was just not with it last night.
Yeah.
And like I'm not even, again, like that happens.
Yeah,
that happens in an 82 game season where you're one of the highest usage guys in the team and you're playing a shitty basketball team. Like that happens.
If I'm reading you, it's less about Julius and more about just like the narrative that kind of followed it.
Yeah. I don't care. Like he doesn't need flowers for that game. Like he didn't do anything in that game. He was, I mean, what did he have? He had 25 points on like 26 shots or 27 shots or something.
I think I think he got a lot of love because I mean, you know how people are. It's like,
look, he stepped up at the very end of the game.
Exactly. It's memorable stuff. It's like, chase down block and buckets at the end of the game in isolation. Like,
yeah, I mean, he stepped up defensively at the end of the game when we absolutely needed him and other guys to step up.
Yeah,
but
they
like,
all stepped up in the last couple minutes.
But like, I thought he was a really. I thought that was like probably his first actual bad game in God knows how long. So like, not killing him for it. I don't. That's fine. You're allowed.
Right. Like if that's his bad game, then like we're in a pretty good spot, right? Like
yeah.
Like a lot better than his bad games last year.
Yeah, if that's his bad game, like okay,
actually
fine.
Better than his good games last year.
He had a bad game. It happens. I'm not going to spend much time discussing it because it's just not that interesting to me. But like, I like the hero Julius way to step up on a bad shooting night, like found ways to contribute. It's like yeah, dude, he found a way to contribute really at like the very end of the game because like two of the blocks like were just like he's under the rim and he's just waiting there for Keldon. Like that's like one like he had one really good steal. He did have one really good steal where he like read the play and that was also I think in the fourth quarter, which to the point was like by the fourth quarter it was a close game and they kind of had to like buckle down. So he locked in. He was really good in like basically like the last 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever. Um, but like overall, I'm not kidding. He can have flowers for like the last month. I'm not giving flowers for yesterday. And then the Brunson thing is like, look, Brunson was awesome scoring the ball, like fucking awesome scoring the ball yesterday. But nobody on the Spurs could check him. Nobody could stay in front of him. He got to his spots whenever he wanted to get to his spots. He was awesome yesterday offensively. This is not like a well, actually, even though he scored 38 points, like he didn't actually do it well. No, he scored the ball. Really
Ethical
fucking well.
buckets.
Yeah,
No
ethical
fucking
buckets.
10 free throws. No, I scored a bunch of points because I went 5 for 18 from 3, which is great for my true shooting percentage
Yeah.
or whatever. No, this is fucking pure, uncut, unstepped on, raw buckets. If Jalen Brunson was born, I don't know when the fuck he was born, but if he was born like 12 years earlier, this guy would be a first bat. Can you imagine if this guy played in like 2004 in like Tony Parker time? It would be incredible.
Yeah,
He'd be unstoppable.
I mean, he kind of is unstoppable right now. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see. It'll be fun. They play Toronto tomorrow. That was like one of his worst games this season. I thought he struggled with the length, but he's like, I mean, look, he's struggled with length before in his career and then found ways around it. So I'm just, I want to see that. I want to see that matchup.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
But like to go back to it, like, look, he had a great scoring game. There's no denying it. But from the start of the game, literally from the start of the game, and I've been talking about this now for like 2 weeks. So this is not like some one-off thing where like it's like, oh, you're just going. No, this ISO shit is like so crazy, and it's not like yes, Brunson is an ISO heavy player. Randall, to a degree, is going to be an ISO heavy player. Like, yes, naturally your team will skew to those possessions to some extent, but like
just because you have that tool doesn't mean you should overly rely on it.
Yeah, and this is the point. Like it's fine. It's all well and good. You beat the Spurs yesterday, scored 117 points. Dandy. Okay. Yes, the Knicks have a top 10 offense. They have found a way to make this team that is not shooting particularly great from three, still an efficient scoring. I don't want to say machine, but functioning, assembly line. But like you can strive for more, and you have more at your disposal. And like I'm sorry, you can't. I don't watch that game yesterday and think, man, if not for Brunson taking 27 shots and Julius taking 25 shots, or the fuck he took, there is nobody else that could have taken even a 2 or 3 or 4 more shots on their own, and we would have been okay. I reject that. I reject that. We had a guy on the team who last week put up 37 or 36, 7 and 7 on this very Spurs team. Yesterday, he had 15 points on 13 shots. He had 8 rebounds. He had 5 assists in 46 minutes. Like, he can do more. Emmanuel Quickley can do more than just like run point when Brunson's not on the floor and attack second side action sometimes. Like, he is capable of doing more, and I'm not asking him to be like even an equal partner handling the ball when Brunson's on the floor. But there should be possessions, there should be sequences, there should be flow into the offense where he is allowed to just go. And I don't think that happened yesterday. I don't think that opportunity existed. And forget him, okay? Like, if you want to say Quickly's got to take more shots when Brunson's off the floor, and fine. I don't want to get into that because you could say that. Guess how many shots Quentin Grimes had yesterday?
I don't even remember. Was it like 8?
8 shots. He went 5 of 8 for 14 points in 38 minutes, I believe, if I remember correctly.
One thing I was,
you can do more. You can run plays for him. Like
that's the thing.
I know for sure. I know this as a fact. Because I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I know Thibs has plays for guys like fucking Grimes. I know that. I know it because we saw it last year with Evan Fournier. And obviously, I don't think Grimes is the level of movement shooter he is. But you know what? I think that Grimes can take those type of actions and attack them in different ways. Like he's getting downhill and not just scoring at the rim efficiently, but making plays for others at the rim efficiently. Like,
bro, if 90-year-old Greg Popovich can draw up plays for Nick Legend, Doug McDermott, then like we can draw up 2 plays a game for Quentin Grimes.
right. That's all I'm asking. It doesn't need you don't need to up these guys' usage to like oh no, we gotta have like 5-20 usage guys. No. Like all you really need all you're talking about here, no joke. This is basically all it is. It's like 2 more field goal attempts for both of them a game. And
that stuff goes so far, and this is the frustrating thing about Thibs. Like a lot of people seem to think that asking this sort of stuff and taking away some touches from our big guns is like very sacrilegious or something. But the payoff for that is like, say you have Grimes, you call plays twice a game, once every half for Grimes to, come off of some decoy action and then come screaming around the pick and, Kyle Korver style, get a shot up. Like he's gonna command that respect. He's that level of player. You see it, the attention he gets on defense.
Look at the attention we had to give Josh Richardson yesterday,
or Doug McDermott.
Yeah,
and it's very hard when you have players who are like even Doug. Like he's athletic. He in a lot of ways, this is gonna be weird, but like they're actually similar in a lot of ways in terms of their athleticism. Doug is a little bigger.
People just want to say Doug isn't athletic because he's white. Let's be real. Like he's athletic. He's always been athletic.
Doug been catching. He's like Jeff Green. Like those guys will catch like 2 monster posters per year until they retire. Jeff Green might be like even more like insane. Like he catches like 10. Anyway, shout out Jeff Green. But like my point is, what I was gonna say is like, say you run 1 or 2 or 3 of those a game where they actually get the ball. You know what that lets you do? All of a sudden now you can run Grimes off of screens and not give him the ball. You can do that 10 times and not give him the ball. And guess what? The defense is still going to be worried about it because of those 2 times he got the ball. It's great to have him in the corner, but like the payoff lasts the whole game. And this is the sort of thing that there's a group of people on the internet who think that like this is like some complex like championship, like no, like you need a team with Hall of Famers and 5 years of continuity. Like no, this is simple. Teams that have little turnover. The Pacers do this shit, and they just showed up and met each other for the first time like 2 months ago.
You don't need to run complex stuff. You don't need to run complex stuff.
Yeah.
You need to run some basic actions. Like you don't need to run a whole
90% of the league does this.
Yeah, you
young or
a whole
old,
separate thing for Quentin Grimes. You need to run like 2 or 3 different actions that
if the Magic can do this shit for Terrence Ross, bro. Like
Thibs has them in his playbook. He has the shit. I've seen him do it. I've seen him run this stuff for Evan Fournier. He ran shit like this for Kyle Korver when he had Kyle Korver back in fucking Chicago. You can go look it up on YouTube if you want. It's not like it's out there. Like he has shit like this in his playbook that he's run before. So it's not that it's not there. It's that he just right now he's in this mode of like he trusts Brunson, he trusts Randall, he trusts RJ when RJ's there. And if need be, if 2 of those guys are down, he will trust Emmanuel quickly. But like that's about it. Like he doesn't trust and he doesn't feel that there's a benefit. That has to be the way he's looking at it. That there isn't a benefit to giving more usage to some of these complementary rising young players that you're not just rostering, but you're also now playing in your rotation consistently high minutes. And like, that's the part of it that I just don't agree with. And I don't agree with it because not only does it help, like you can run that, like a fucking, you can run some floppy shit, right? Effectively as like a decoy at the end of a game. If you do that in the beginning of a game, to just get Julius the ISO that you want from him anyway without telegraphing it. Like it's stuff like that where it's like, even if your end goal is I want to give the ball to Julius at the elbow, okay, run some bullshit DHO actions as part of like your normal offense a couple times a game. I promise you, if you do that, that will make life easier for Julius to do his ISO thing at the end of a ball game. Like that's all it is. It's not about oh, I want Quentin Grimes to be like taking the amount of shots that Julius is or Jalen is. No, absolutely not. I 100% do not want that. And I don't think they need that right now. I don't think Quentin Grimes would be best served doing that right now. I just want Quentin Grimes to get some opportunities on the ball. Like I was looking at the numbers today. Do you know how many pick and rolls Quentin Grimes has run this year?
Is it 0?
10. He's run 10. And I would
So the same
venture
number of roll man plays that Obi has.
right. Yeah, and I would venture to guess. I would venture to guess that most of that is just like
Garbage
a lot of
time.
it's probably the Dallas game and the San Antonio game and the Houston game where we just had Quickly and Julius, right? Like there were no other options. And like again, I don't think Grimes is ready to be a high level pick and roll ball handler. All it just if you look at the numbers, like I think Brunson has run 313 pick and rolls, and then Quickly has run 157, and then it's like RJ basically is the only other guy at a decent volume who matters. Like,
And it's stupid because all of these other guys are pretty good catch and shoot guys.
yeah, Brunson's awesome. He's awesome at catch and shoot. And like, this is the other part. Is like, it's not about even getting like Quickly is the best example of this because I think like if you go back, I don't know why. Maybe you want to. If you go back and watch the Dallas game, like the first 47 minutes, 30 seconds, but like actually just the first three quarters, what you'll see is look. I don't like the entire weird conversation. It's like, oh, thank God we signed Brunson because if we didn't sign Brunson, like Quickly clearly couldn't be the point guard. Look, am I happy we signed Brunson? Absolutely. Like he definitely makes the team better. He provides a dimension we didn't have, blah, 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 blah. There's no question about it, right? But like you watch a game like that San Antonio game, and like, I think all it is if you empower Quickly a bit more than Thibs has. Just and please just forget just empowering him. Like just never play him with Hartenstein and Sims. As soon as Obi comes back, I really hope we just don't see that very often or ever, maybe. But like you watch that Dallas game in most of those minutes, right? Because obviously he just played Quickly, Deuce, Grimes, Randall, pick a big. Like that was basically the lineup for most of the game. Like because they just had like three shooters, and then Quickly's the one guy that can actually like dribble and play point. I mean, Julius can dribble and like do Julius stuff, but that's different. But like they were sprinting the ball up the floor, quickly sprinting the ball up the floor, and he's getting into the paint and he's spraying out to shooters. He's spraying out to shooters. He had like 15 assists in that game. I think 14 of them came in the first three quarters. I would bet that most of those were threes. But like my point is like if he's playing with Brunson, which he is right now, like you know what Brunson's awesome at, what he's been awesome at his entire career is catch and shoot threes. He's been great at that his entire career. I think Quickly dimed him up yesterday on one from the corner. Like this is a way where you give Brunson Brunson is carrying a load right now, right? And we saw that he hurt himself in the Dallas game. I mean, I don't know how much that was influenced by the minutes load, but like it obviously it is okay for a few times a game to be like, okay, even though Brunson's in, I want to run this one for Quickly to get in the paint and have Brunson in the corner, and he runs a pick and pop with Julius, and Grimes can spread it out on the other side. Like it's just very basic stuff like this, where it's like you're talking about a couple possessions a game, and to be honest, like I think Thibs can do it. Like he obviously has this stuff in his playbook, so it's not a thing where you're like do something you've never done. It's like no, just do things that you have done a little bit more frequently, and that's it. But I'm not gonna lie, I am worried that when RJ comes back, we're gonna go back to all of those three guys are basically tasked with running the offense, and two of them are on the floor the vast majority of the game at least. And I wanted to go through this because I've seen a lot of people that are like, oh, clearly, you see the minutes Quickly is playing now, and all these kids are playing now. Like, how can you you can't?
Yeah, it's been really weird that like people are like, oh, like isn't all you wanted minutes?
Well, it's not even just that. Like yes, I'm a little bit more like I don't want to say. I think like to some degree Fournier and Rose and these guys are just so fucking garbage that fine, whatever. I'll just be like, okay, fine. If this is what you think needs to be done, fine, whatever. But like, what really is kind of annoying to me is when I see there's like pushback on, well, see, you wanted the kids to get minutes and now they're getting all these minutes. Like, how could you ever say that he hated the kids? And how can you say that he wasn't giving Quickly enough minutes and that he doesn't appreciate what Quickly does, or he's not even giving Deuce a chance? Like, look, I just want to go through this. Okay. This is the last 5 games before RJ got hurt. All right. Indiana, 22 minutes. Quickly doesn't shoot well that game. I actually thought he played it more than he should have, but 22 minutes. Toronto, he plays 34 minutes and 38 seconds. Why? Because Quentin Grimes is hurt. That's why. Okay. Chicago, 21 minutes and 7 seconds. Philadelphia, 21 minutes, 33 seconds. Like, it's not, I think there was a trend happening. I thought it at the time that he was, and it's not about Quickly or Deuce. It's because he really, and I guess this is like, I don't know how you want to feel about this. It's not necessarily bad or good, or it's just a thing. I think he was like really starting to trust not just Brunson and not just Randall, but also RJ, like really leaning on them. And that came at the expense of somebody like Quickly and Deuce to an even more strong degree. And like, that's fine. Like, Deuce wasn't shooting well. He's also just not shooting a bit at all. I would like to see him get a little bit more minutes just because I think you can use him to buy these guys a little bit more time. But like he went from, he played 14 minutes against Toronto, just under 10 against Chicago, and then 5 minutes and 35 seconds against Philly. Like, I just want, like, all I would say is there's enough minutes to go around here where Brunson can get like 32 and RJ can get 32 and Grimes can get 32 and Quick can get like 27 and Deuce can get like 13. Like I don't think any of these guys need to be subjected to extended minutes loads is really all I'm saying. And I think that you have enough talent there, especially in the backcourt with the first 4 guys I named, which is Brunson, RJ, Quickly, Grimes, that you can get away with that. And like, you don't need to push any of them to like, oh, well, today 40 minutes for Brunson. Like, you don't, when you get RJ back, you don't need to do that shit. And he was starting to lean in those annoying little stretches that he often has as a coach. I think he can avoid those. And he should avoid them because I think there's a benefit to that, both in terms of like, yes, the player development angle, but also just keeping guys fresh and healthy. The Randall one is a little bit different, obviously, with Obi out. I am a little bit more just kind of like, I don't know. If Randall's out and, Cam is dead man walking, which Cam, you'd be anybody that's still talking about Cam, like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, if you want to focus your energy on that, that's cool, but he's never playing again. Not in the Knicks. So I don't know. But like until Obi is back, I'm like, I am sympathetic to just, okay, look, Randall's got to eat it for right now, right? But like the backcourt stuff, even, I mean, man, like even with RJ out, it's like, could you give Deuce like just 2 more minutes each half? Is that really gonna kill you? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but like the point is, like, please, when they're healthy, is just don't start doing that thing of like, oh my God, like Grimes is healthy. Like they have fucking DeMar DeRozan. Like they have Zach LaVine. I have to get him back in the game. Quickly can't play. Like, no, dude, we're seeing it now. Quickly is playing a bunch of minutes. He's playing quote unquote undersized, and guess what? He's fine. He's not the one getting torched out there. He's not the one that's giving up fucking rebounds and giving up back cuts and getting schooled defensively. No, it's not him. So like, you don't need to protect him or view these guys like, you don't need to size match up like that. Like, you have versatility with this backcourt with these guys. Just trust it, play it, and that's it. That's all.
He doesn't care about. I mean, you know this, but like, it's worth saying he doesn't care about like who needs what. He cares about a game plan that's decided before the game, and then he does it, and he doesn't deviate from it. And it's one of the main reasons why, like, yes, the Knicks are doing excellently right now on the whole. Like, they're top 10 defensive rating, offensive rating.
You say that, but I like, this is my thing that I never really understand about that is like one, he definitely applies that more strongly to the first 3 quarters than he ever does to the fourth.
Right.
But the other part of that is like it just never like there's not necessarily ever a consistency to that stuff. Like we played the Bulls 3 times in a week and there wasn't a real consistency to how we approach. And like look, every game is different. So I'm not saying that needs to be the case, but it's like if you did feel that way that he has to he wouldn't view that team so differently in a week. You know what I mean? Like
The
he would
Bulls, yeah.
yeah, he would play the same. So I just think sometimes it's not like the minute stuff, especially. I don't think it's about that. I think sometimes he just like gets really obsessive about certain matchups that he feels like height is so important to have on the floor and he can't avoid that. And like it's not even I don't know, like is that bad? Is it good? I don't know. I just think it's weird. That's where I'm at with Thibs where it's like I don't know how much of it the things he does are bad or good, but they are very weird and I don't think anybody can deny that. Like he's very weird for the average NBA coach in 2023
So
now.
here's what I'll say. I'm glad you brought that up because it's a great segue to a point I wanted to make, which is like he like early in the season when things were going terribly, you had this is oversimplifying it, but you had two perspectives that dominated Knicks fans. One was we have talent and Tibbs is doing a bunch of nonsense and we're also dealing with nonsense from some of our key players, right? Julius and RJ. And then you have the other camp, which is like, what do you expect? We don't really have that much talent. This is not that kind of team where you could get what you people want out of this roster. And I want to take stock of this roster right now because a lot of those people now are like, they're enjoying the good times and they're like, wow, the Knicks are doing okay. We're not awful. Are we going to be playing? Are we going to be higher? I don't know, whatever. But like, let's like stop and take stock of the talent on this roster right now. We have Julius Randle who's playing, at an all-star level, despite occasional Julius moments that make him very special, right? He's still killing in a lot of other ways. You have Jalen Brunson, who's unquestionably playing at an all-star level. Like, the shit he did yesterday is fucking special. Like you said, he's basically unstoppable. Not once in the blue moon, but very regularly. And the main reason he doesn't score 50 points is because he doesn't take a zillion threes or draw a zillion free throws, which, whatever. If he did, then he'd be a top 10 player in the NBA with how skilled he is. Okay. RJ Barrett, who started the season horrendously, and I'm pretty sure most RJ Barrett critics right now would say, he's getting more efficient. He's getting his legs under him. And at worst, he's a very solid wing who's a $20 million wing and probably worth that, at minimum. Okay. So 2 All-Stars and a $20 million player. Quentin Grimes. We just spanked Phoenix. He's basically Mikal Bridges right now. Like, there's not much discernment. They're both twos who can guard up, but don't quite have the size to guard fours. They're both incredible cutters, incredible shooters with shooting variety, who are incredible plus minus monsters because they shoot well and they do the little things well. They move, they screen, they rebound, things like that. So 2 All-Stars, 2 $20 million players. You have Mitchell Robinson, who pretty much outside of all-star centers, and let's say the worst all-star center is Jared Allen, right? Like outside of all-star, or maybe Brook Lopez, like outside of all-star centers, he's pretty much as good as it gets outside of Brook Lopez. I think that's pretty fair to say.
I'm gonna need him to figure out how to not play like an absolute bum against Acapulco, though.
Yeah, the less we say about how the Spurs bigs baffled the Knicks bigs, the better. So, but that is absolutely true. That Jakob Pertl hook shot from like 13 feet away made me want to frisbee my computer fucking across the street.
Well, I didn't even get pissed that he made that nonsensical shot. I was like, Mitch, why are you trying to block that and fouling him? Like, just if Jakob Pertl is taking 13-foot hook shots, I want you've done your job. You have done your job. Like you have done your job.
Yeah.
Stop. Oh my god, that was like
I feel like Mitch has had a couple of like really good blocks that were actually goaltends recently, so he's just trying to like show out and just punt people right now. But okay, so 2 All-Stars, including one of them who's borderline, not just a bum all-star, but like a legit all-star, right? In Julius, if you consider just some of the really crazy numbers he's putting up.
Yeah.
And then two $20 million players, including the kind of one who gets fucking filleted by media all the time in Mikal Bridges. And then Mitchell Robinson, a pretty great sub all-star center at a young age on a great deal. And Emmanuel Quickly, who folks around the league unanimously agreed if he is available, everybody should be calling for him. And any advanced metrics reading writer acknowledges that
Except John
he's
Hollinger.
yeah, that's true. He has been eerily silent on IQ.
Oh, he was more than silent last year. He basically said
I mean,
that.
he's no Santi Aldama, right? So
Right.
what can you do?
Well, no, last year he said that if fans thought that playing Emmanuel Quickly more than Kemba Walker would result in any tangible difference, they were crazy.
Yeah. So that's the sixth guy is him. And the rest of there's like there's a drop off after that. But my point is, like, this is very clearly in the top 6, and that's not even getting to like Obi has been criminally misused. So like I'll put Obi aside for now, whatever, flaws and strengths. But like those 6 guys alone, like this is not a bum fucking roster. You're talking about a great center, 2 all-stars, and then separately from that, 2 $20 million players, including one of whom is a volume scorer and has wing size and is 22. So like you can't tell me anymore that like, oh, it's
So
these kids have a chance to win. Oh, like it's happy to be here. Like, no, if I told you a non-Knicks team had 2 all-stars, one of whom was a great all-star and 6'9", 250, 2 $20 million players, one of who's a volume scorer, a great center, a top 10 defensive rating and offensive rating, that's not a team that's just happy to be here. We can stop being, like, oh, I have to be so appreciative that.
Sorry, go ahead. I don't know why that happened. My bad.
All right. We're recording?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we can stop. We don't have to just be happy to be here. We don't have to just be appreciative that we're in the mix and the kids are getting better. Like, no, we're allowed to like say, hey, just like any other 5 or 6 seed level talent team, like we're allowed to say the coach is not doing enough with this talent. This is just because the talent happens to be a bunch of 22-year-olds and national media attention doesn't reflect that fact, doesn't mean we have to be ignorant of that as fans. Like,
so
the difference between real quick, the difference between us and other top 5, top 6 teams is those teams are where they're at because they have, through luck or through strategy, usually stumbled upon a top 15 player. Instead, we've done this the harder way. And because this is done the harder way, we all of a sudden have to hold our coach to a lower standard. That's nonsense to me. Nobody's fucking holding Doc Rivers to a lower standard, or Eric Spoelstra to a lower standard, or any of these presumptive top 6 teams in either conference.
Well,
like
Atlanta is they're probably going to fire Nate McMillan at some point, right?
Yeah, they're not going to make the playoffs. So like I'm not, and they're like, sure, they have Trey, sure, and they have Murray, but like their talent level is.
I agree, but they have 2 guys. Like, look, this is the NBA.
Yeah.
We know that top talent is presumably
right. It's a good comparison. They have 2. They have 2 all-stars,
and they have 2 guys that people before the season would have told you
$20 million or whatever, 25, right?
But I think the biggest point is like before the season, and I think that the consensus is that both Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are better players than either of the Knicks' 2 top guys. And I probably would have agreed with you on Julius. I don't know if I would have felt the same way about Brunson, but like the point is, like, that was the consensus opinion. So
sure.
All right, like I would say this though. Here, like I'm not even gonna say this. Let me push back because not push back. Let me just be a devil's advocate for a second. What would you say to the people that would be like, well, one, you wanted Julius gone and Thibs has gotten into play better, so doesn't he deserve credit for that? And then 2, like these guys are playing well. Who's to say that the way they're playing that they would replicate that or be able to match that or exceed that under a different head coach? And so why can't we just appreciate that Thibs does have us playing at, I checked it today. I mean, it's a 44-45 win pace they're on.
Yeah.
why can't we just appreciate that? Because wouldn't you have said before the year that if we win 44, 45 games, it's a good year. That's probably we make the playoffs and okay. Like and the key part, and this is the key part, and he does deserve credit for this, is that they're doing it playing a bunch of fucking young guys. And like,
Yeah.
you listen to the 6 guys. We can talk about the Obi bit a little bit later, but look, he's played Obi. Obi would be the 7th guy. Deuce is the 8th guy,
Yeah,
right?
and then the
And
centers.
and then the center. So it's like
Yeah.
he's playing a young rotation. The organization is committed to this young team also. All things considered, like, doesn't he deserve credit for that stuff? And if so, like, why would we change that?
So the way, and this is my thing, is like, because our team has a level of talent that isn't just like, wow, we're not awful. Like I feel like we as fans are entitled to want more than just clearing the lowest of bars, right? And I'll give you an example. Like, again, you look at all these teams that are in like the 4, 5, 6 seed ranges and have true stars recognized more than the Knicks stars or whatever. Like, it's very common for people to be like, oh, Doc Rivers does some very odd things with his rotation, and I wish he didn't do that. Like, people aren't like, oh, be grateful that your team is a top 4 seed. They're like, no, like, yeah, Doc Rivers should probably do
So
these things
you're saying
differently.
the expectations shouldn't lower the bar for how you're evaluating the coach. That these decisions are either good or they're bad, regardless of talent level to a certain degree. I know that's like not that simple, but you get what I'm saying.
A little bit. I think because we're better, the expectations actually get higher, right? Like, and this is the whole thing with Thibs, is like, and this is what we've been saying for the start. And this is why I don't think appreciating Thibs for what he has done this year well, and in the past couple of years well, I don't think that precludes you from evaluating him and grading him harder, because that's what you do when your team gets better. The bar gets higher and you expect more out of your coach, just like you expect more out of your players when you're better. And that's my point with Doc Rivers as an example. It's like, just because every season people pick the Sixers as like possible, Eastern Conference finalists, doesn't mean like it means a certain level of expectation exists for Doc Rivers, which is why Sixers fans lament like all his fucking shenanigans that he does every year, because finals appearances are potentially on the line for him, and obviously finals appearances are not on the line for the Knicks. But you have talent, you can win games. It's not just win games versus the Spurs of the world. Like, you can compete with other teams. Like, they were playing the Mavs during like a Luka fucking Holy Ghost mode without 2 of their top players and almost won the game. And like, people focused on Luka, as they should, because that was amazing. But like, also the Knicks were in it against that version of Luka despite a huge handicap. Like, that went under the radar outside of Knicks fans, because everybody was, rightfully looking at Luka. So I just think it's weird that people are acting like we should be grateful that we've gotten this much out of Thibs, when I'm like, no, this is a talent. This team has a certain level of talent, and once you have a certain level of talent, the bar is raised, full stop. And this is in line with what we've been saying about Thibs for years, right? Like, what's the most appealing, the best justification for Thibs being hired in 2020? What was it? To build a foundation for a team that really was, in a lot of ways, lacking that for many years, and to get us up to a certain level of competence that we didn't consistently have. Guess what? We've reached that this year. Like, last year was fucking weird. Don't get me wrong. The year before that was weird in a different way. But this year, it's like, we're pretty good. Like, the players are 2-3 years older than they were when Thibs came. Those same young kids who we played now could barely vote when Thibs first came. Now they have grown ass men bodies. IQ now looks like a fucking bodybuilder, right? And he's like the frailest of all of these dudes somehow. Like, you're not coaching a bunch of kids who, like, these guys are on the
They're
cusp of
young.
being
They're
better.
young, but they're not. They're this isn't the Rockets. Is your point?
This isn't the Rockets or the Magic. Like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, they're kids, but you're allowed to say like these kids are really good, and we have a lot of them. And then we have older kids like
Well,
Brunson And
Well, like, I mean,
Julius,
you look at the lineup we played against the Rockets. I mean,
night and day, night and day.
but and like we're Quickly's a third-year player, Grimes a second-year player, Deuce a second-year player.
And these guys did
Yeah,
multiple years in college too. So
right.
like
And
on
Mitch
top
is
of
like,
that,
yeah, and Mitch is like, okay, he's young, but he's like, yeah, but like you're not talking about. It's not like they were playing like we're like the this grizzled squad of veterans, and we were playing the new kids on the block. Like they're both pretty young teams.
yeah,
And we're just a way more confident. And that is a credit to Thibs. Like
yes,
I've always said this. I think he's good at developing talent.
yes,
I have no
yes.
issue with that at all. Um, I guess what I would say, and not that look, I'm just trying very hard not to, go down the path of. I mean, look, everybody knows how I feel about Thibs. It's not a big secret, but like I will say, I think there's like if
I'm not, and for the record, I'm not out here saying like fire Tibbs. Like, would I like if you made me
I
emperor
would
of the
fire Thibs
NBA?
last year, so
Yeah, I
like
would. Yeah,
so this
obviously.
is
But
like a
my point
different.
is like,
Yeah.
if like realistically speaking, I don't think there's any chance that the Knicks obviously fire Tibbs this season during the season, and
Yeah,
I
and I also
totally understand that. That's like
yeah.
I'm not gonna like. I'll
Well,
have my
it's the same
criticism, but I'm not
thing.
gonna lose my shit over it. Like,
It's the same thing with like the Julius Randle discussion of like, oh well, like this is the time to trade Julius, and I'm like, look, you can have that conversation all you want. You can think it's like there. I'm telling you, like, right, they're not trading him. They're not. It's not going to happen. They might trade him in the offseason. I don't know. That I could see. I could see them trading Julius in the
yeah,
offseason. I could see we go to the playoffs and we flame out again in 5 rounds and look totally outmatched, outcoached, whatever. And they're like, "Thanks, Tibbs. It's been real." I could see that, but they're not going to do it in season. And like, and the point I've made in like the argument for like why I don't really care about the Julius thing right now and why I probably wouldn't trade him unless the offer's just really strong is like the vibes are good. And I don't know, like
right.
I don't know how I don't know how these things impact others. Like I don't know if Julius is in the locker room like and everybody is lifting him on their shoulders and he's like the king of New York again. And like I don't know, but it seems like he's actively taken on a actual beneficial leadership role this year. It seems like he's more willing to own his fuck ups and things of that nature. And I do think that goes a long way to building good vibes and building back some of the credit he might have lost internally at times last year. But like the point is like those vibes are good. And like I do think you want yes, I think highly of like the young talent the Knicks have, but they are still at impressionable ages. Like I'm okay erring on the side of caution of like, well, better the devil you know than let's
Sure,
yeah, like
sure.
I'm fine with like if I'm applying that to Julius, I think it's fair to like apply that to Tibbs where it's like, look, if I had my druthers, as they say, if I had my druthers and if I just could do whatever I wanted to do without consideration of anything else in the world, like, yeah, I'd just be like, fuck Tibbs, he's gone. Like, cool. But that's not realistic. So if I'm considering all of this shit in totality, like I just can't have the conversation anymore because how I feel is how I feel. And really until I see Tibbs, like if we need to go to the playoffs and I need to see very specific things from Tibbs to make me really like change my tune entirely because like
You
we
can
can say
appreciate him being more flexible and being a better coach this year than he was last year, while still
yeah, I
saying,
do. I do.
yeah,
I
yeah,
do.
right, we
Yeah.
do. And while still saying, like, well, he still has lots of low hanging fruit that 90% of coaches take advantage of that he chooses not to for reasons that are not particularly good. And on top of that, like we usually see these chickens come home to roost in the playoffs, right? And the ISO stuff is
That's
a
important.
perfect example of that. Like this roster is significantly more dynamic than the roster we took to the playoffs 2 years ago on Julius's back with help from Reggie Bullock and friends. And that is an advantage going into a playoff series, obviously. The depth is an advantage when we're healthy. Hopefully, praise God, hopefully we're healthy. But we know that like I'm very certain I'd put money up that like the reliance on iso ball, particularly in the fourth quarters, the lack of strategic implementation of regular non-complex things like off-ball actions before isolations is going to put them at a significant handicap.
I would even say it's a little bit. It's not even necessarily. Look, one of the things that's really weird about Thibs, and this is weird relative to NBA, the standard NBA coach, is how many sets a game he's calling out. And because of how many sets a game he's calling out, I think that makes it very hard to spread out usage among different guys, because so many of those sets inherently you get into them with 14, 15 seconds left. So if whatever you're trying to do doesn't work out, now you were in a situation where you got to ISO, you're going to ISO your best guys. That's just how it works. So I think because of that, there's just weird things with him that are not the case with, and that's not just look, there are worse coaches in the NBA than Thibs. I think, Billy Donovan's a worse coach than Thibs. Does he maybe do some stuff better than Thibs? Maybe, but overall, I would not trade Billy Donovan. I would not trade Thibs for Billy Donovan. I think that's just a fact. I just wouldn't do that. And there are probably other coaches. If I really sat down and thought about it, there are definitely other coaches I would say that about. But there are things that are just specific to Thibs. There are things that so one of the things that's specific to Thibs is if you buy in and execute his defense over the course of an NBA season, and you have guys that are capable of doing the things that he needs you to do, you're probably going to be a top 10 somewhere around their defense. Maybe better, maybe worse, but you're going to be right around there. But within that top 10 defense, you're going to see shit that is a problem. You're going to see there are certain guys who can take advantage of the fact that your weak side help scheme is so fucking it's so aggressive, and a guy like Luka can kill you on that. A guy like Harden can kill you on that. A guy like LeBron can kill you on that, because those are guys that can make that weak side pass for the corner three in their sleep. But
particularly if you have another thing that this is just an example, but we're very dedicated to that defense. And how many times do we see other teams throw a zone against the Knicks? Not the whole game, but for a couple minutes.
A lot.
Yeah,
and
because every team fucking does that, whether they're young or old. You have to throw in the modern NBA. You need to have the ability to, as a team, throw a changeup to just keep the other team on their feet. This isn't saying you have to throw 18 crazy scheme switches like Nick Nurse or some shit, but
don't be Nick Nurse, please. Don't
be Nick Nurse.
Yeah, don't be Nick Nurse.
But we don't do that.
Yeah, well, so the Spurs game, we talked about this yesterday on the rundown. That was a perfect example of a game where it's this is this is a perfect opponent to just randomly break out a zone for a couple minutes. They can't shoot. They cannot shoot. You've seen Trey Jones, he just desperately is trying not to be forced to take a three. Desperately, doing anything he can to not take a three. This is a team that you should throw that out there for a few minutes, but you don't see that. And I do think he's made some adjustments, but I don't think the improved defense really is much beyond there. We're just playing the guys that executed a lot better, and that's that. I really don't think it's a significant schematic shift. He is letting Julius switch a little bit more, which is nice. That's a big one. But aside from that, I don't see a lot that they're doing that I'm oh, well, that's really
the only other thing that jumps out is he's making Julius switch more. Before RJ got hurt, he was letting Julius and RJ switch more, and then sometimes he's letting the weak side guy roam a little bit more.
Yeah, he's not. I don't know if that's I actually wonder if that's a schematic thing, or if that's because the guy that's been doing
it's
that
mostly Jalen.
Yeah, and I think Jalen's just doing that. I don't think that's a.
It could be.
Yeah, sure. I think he's just doing that. And what's he gonna do? Bench Jalen? No, he's not gonna, you know what I mean? He's not going to. So, I think that's just Jalen being a smart basketball player and playing. Okay, this is the scheme, but I'm not gonna play to that all the time. I'm gonna be a little bit more flexible within it. But the point is just I don't think that the defensive improvement has much to do beyond Thibs really just settling on, okay, we're going to play these kids more. And guess what? Turns out if you play quickly more, if you play Grimes is starting, if Mitch is healthy, turns out that those three guys pretty much, they can get you to about a pretty good defense. They can do it. Because that's really all you need is three.
And just because they can do that, and this is the thing, just because they can do that because of their gifts, doesn't mean this is the optimal way to deploy them. That's the fucking thing that people
Well,
conflate to
it's
me
if
that annoys
anything,
me.
yeah. I mean, if anything, it's like these guys are doing this already. What else can they do? And it's like maybe the answer truly is they are just built to play this scheme, and the offensive roles that we have that Tibbs has assigned are just actually the best roles possible for these guys. The thing is, like, Tibbs has talked about this stuff is he basically won't do things in game unless he feels he's seen it in practice and whatever training camp. Like, he won't just try stuff in games. And so, like, I think it's safe to assume then that, like, he doesn't feel that he has seen enough from these guys to do different things. But like, I don't know how to feel about that, because I think that's just like weird, because we know that practice time in the NBA is limited, and like once you get out of training camp, there's not a lot of practice time, so you're just not going to get a chance to like is a Quentin Grimes, to me, looks like a better player than he did at the end of last year, and he looks like a better player. Like, I think you see growth from him, especially offensively, almost every game. Like, every game you see something from him that is like, oh wow, that's a little new. That's a little wrinkle. I didn't know he did that. I didn't know he could do that. And it's like that's so like I feel like I'm watching a guy who's actually developing in front of me and like incrementally becoming a better player. So it's like, when that's happening, shouldn't you maybe consider like seeing if you can do another thing? And that's always, like, my feeling is like you can afford to try a couple possessions out on either end of the floor each game. Now, might that cost you a game here or there? Maybe. Might win you a game here or there too. You don't know until you try it. It's like the Randall Obi thing, right? Like, does it work all the time again in every situation when you've done it? No. But we've also seen it. It does work in certain situations, on certain nights, in certain matchups. Like, we won that Philly game earlier this year, which looked like it was going to be one of the most annoying, frustrating losses. Those guys turned that Randall Obi lineup killed it, and that turned the game for us. So, like, the thing with this stuff is you never know until you do it. And even when you do it, you don't, like, even if it works one time, that doesn't mean it's going to work every time. The point is to, like, find out when these things can't work. So, maybe zone works certain times and it won't work other times, but like, until you do it, you're not going to know. And it's like, it's not just zone, right? It's like, we can talk about the centers. Like, so I don't know that having Jericho Sims switch when he plays center is going to materially improve the defensive performance of the units that he's the nominal center for. I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect that it would, because he's not good at drop. And so, like, when you're asking, like, you can, so that's not to say that you don't want him playing drop at all, because
listen, yeah, like the most switchy
that,
centers in the league still play lots of job.
right? Like, he has
Nobody
to play
switches
drop
50% of the time. I think the Bucks and Bam switches more than any other centers. And I forget who wrote about it and pulled it from Second Spectrum or one of those crazy services. And I think he switches on like a third. So 66% of the time, Bam, the most switching center who's an actual center, still doesn't switch. So like when we say, please let Sim switch more, we're not like switch everything all the time for the whole game.
Yeah, and it's just, so it's like that's really all it is. It's like, I actually, I'd say this, like, I was at like the fire Tibbs for sure point, like even after that OKC game, there were multiple games here. I was like, this guy's got to go. I'm not at that point now, and now I'm like, I kind of still want you to be fired, but like, I also think you're like you're that close, like you're that close to just being good, and like I wouldn't want you fired, and I don't think the things we're asking of him are like, again, I just don't think they're that significant. Like, I really think he could do it. It's almost like, will he come to that realization? He has been more flexible in a lot of ways than he ever has before. And like, whatever we say about the specific nature of like how we're getting to shots, which is a process, like there's two ends of process, right? Like the actual mechanism that you're using and then the desired output. The desired output is actually pretty good. Like we're getting, our shot quality is good. Like, and our shot distribution is good. Getting a lot of shots at the rim getting a lot of threes. We're not taking a bunch of mid-range shots. We get to the line a bunch. That stuff is good. All I'm talking about is the process of how it happens. Like, how are you actually deriving those threes? How are you deriving those shots at the rim? How are you like those are the variables where I think Thibs could grow a little bit more. And if he did that, he would grow into being a even better coach than he is. And like, I don't like, can he do that? Will he do that? I have no clue. My gut instinct is he won't, because I still think offensively he just calls so many plays. There's no willingness to just let a game flow sometimes. And like that's what you need. And I think that like helps dudes get into a rhythm. Like I think that helps your complementary, supporting, ancillary, whatever phrase you want to use to describe them. It helps your supporting cast more than it helps your main dudes. But like again, he's close. He's close. He's closer than he's been for sure. He's he's definitely closer than he fucking was last year. I'll tell you that. I mean, last year was miserable, but like this year, not miserable. This year, I'm just like tweak a few more things. That's it. Let's do that. But okay, we've talked about Thibs for long enough. I know you had some stuff that you wanted to talk about with centers, and so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it when we were talking about Sims being bad in drop, and I wanted to have a video out before this pod, but I'm bad at technology and a boomer apparently, and having some troubles developing that. So unsurprising to Shwin, but stay tuned. I will get that out.
But I did want to bring this up. So
Yeah.
like we talked about just real quick, last thing on Thibs. We mentioned like, okay, regular season is obviously very, very different from the playoffs, right? So his 2017-18 Minnesota team, they were fourth in the NBA in offensive rating. They had a 113.4 offensive rating. When they got to the playoffs, they played the Houston Rockets. Houston was the sixth best defense that year. Okay, but you had Butler, you had Cat, you had Wiggins. Not the Wiggins that he is today, but still Wiggins, like a guy that can create shots. Their offensive rating in that series was 107.6. They scored 104, 102, sorry, 101, 82, 121, 100, 104. The point I'm making isn't that he should have, that you have to go back and watch his games, but it's like you can have a really good regular season offense, and that might not translate to the nature of playoff basketball. So like when we're talking about this offense is good, but it could be better, it's not because I like think that the minor things that you're able to that you would add fundamentally change the entire like output of your offense to an even higher degree. No, but I think they give you variety and variation, which you need and which is very useful in the playoffs, which ultimately is the goal. That is where you're trying to get. And I don't think you're going to cost yourself, like you're not going to miss the playoffs because you tried a few couple of things. Like you're not. So that's all. That's the last thing I want to say. That's my only point. And that is, I think that's probably the one of the two main fundamental disagreements between people that think like Thibs is fine, but we could move on. Like we're not gonna. He's not the guy. Versus the people that are like, how could you move on? Like this team is playing above expectations. I think that's like at the core of probably one of the main disagreements.
And the last thing I'll say about that, before talking about centers, is I think people mistake the perspective of this front office in a lot of mistakes. They're risk averse, and I think they also apply the fandom attitude of like, wow, we should be grateful for what we have because look at it compared to the horrible things we've had before. And
we should
like,
be grateful for what we have, but then also like we should, stop overrating our kids.
Yeah, I know, right? But like, I promise you, if you go talk to Leon Rose and like, they're risk averse in a lot of ways, like any GM or whatever. But like, they're not sitting on their laurels. They're trying to really kick ass, and sometimes do their decisions seem to fly in the face of that? Sure. Like, they're gonna have different evaluations of players, coaches, situations, and things like that. But there will be situations where they figure this is this is the way we get an impact player in the draft. This is the way we make a trade without sacrificing our future. Like there's going to be a point where they decide, I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't know when it's going to be, but like Thibs, I promise you, Thibs is not here for an eternity. Like they hired Thibs because he was the foundation. Look at the other guys they interviewed in that process: Johnny Bryant, Will Hardy, Udoka, Mike Brown. I just listed this to somebody on Twitter. Like almost all of the coaches, put Udoka aside because he shouldn't be in the league again, but like put like all the other coaches they interviewed are killing it. Now,
Will
a couple
Hardy.
of them are. Oh yeah, Hardy. A couple of them are still assistants, but like Mike Brown, killing it. Mix of kids and vets, roughly the same age as the Knicks. Like,
Shout out Mike Brown, who people, I don't know why people always ragged on him for being really good with LeBron James, which apparently is a crime.
yeah, I know, right? God, what a talent, like loser.
Yeah.
Mike Brown and Will Hardy, and then you look at, it's just the talent level around the league is really high, and our own coaching search reflected that. And Tibbs was good for where we were, and that's not going to be where we are in the future. Like it's not a crime against humanity. It's not a crime for a front office to say we want great, not good. And some people may say, "Oh, well, Prez, like, wouldn't that mean they should have traded for Donovan Mitchell because, Quentin Grimes is good, but Donovan Mitchell is great and scored 71." Like, yeah, but the whole point was there. It wasn't about their evaluation of Donovan Mitchell. It was their evaluation of, all right, how can we get our team to be great with Donovan Mitchell, who is great,
If they
and
give up all of this stuff.
exactly. I promise you, they love Donovan Mitchell and think he's really fucking good, but they didn't want to have Donovan Mitchell and his greatness and squander that. That's pretty much what it came down to. Like we can have real honest debates about like Donnie is improving, and if he maintains how he's playing this season, he's better than a lot of us thought he is. But guess what? Like they have the same offensive rating as the Knicks, so like that's like again, like people conflate individual greatness with team greatness, and Leon Rose is brought here to make the team great, not to get cool counting stats for you to fucking flame out in the first or second round. So, like, you got to take a step back and realize that even though they're gonna stick by Tibbs or Leon is because they're boys, like as a whole, I'm telling you, this front office is probably thinking eventually about like they're not just happy to be here. They're not just happy to have the fucking 60. This isn't one of those teams where they're just content selling, a round of playoff tickets every year for 10 years or whatever. Like you don't have to put your insecurities onto the front office. That's like all I see a lot of that shit and it's really weird. Like I don't know how people are. This is the last thing I'll say. Like people got different attitudes towards their own professional work. Like in my job, I try to be fucking great. And God forbid some of the Knicks try to do that shit too. God forbid IQ want to be fucking great instead of just a good 3-and-D backup, guard microwave or whatever. God forbid, us think about, wow, how can we get Tibbs, who's a fine coach and not the worst NBA, to be great like all the other new coaches who were hired almost without fail, except for like Steven Silas. Literally every other new coach who's hired who's like under 50 years old is pretty much killing it. Even the guys with their shittiest teams like Jacques Vaughn, they're not shitty because their coaches suck. Their coaches are great and they have no fucking bench, which is on purpose because they're trying to tank. Like the guy whose name I can't pronounce in Oklahoma City, great with his talent.
Daniel.
Overwhelmingly. Yeah. Wait, how do you say it?
Daniel.
Like literally, like almost. It's you're not playing. Like, I mean, I guess you could consider it a form of Russian roulette if like 1 out of every 7 coaches is horrendous or something. But like, given the coaching search we had, I just don't. I'm not gonna apologize for holding Tibbs to a higher standard than just like, oh, not the worst, and we're doing good with not the worst.
Well, I just think it's like yeah, there's a risk that the guy you pick ends up being terrible. I mean, the Pacers did that, right? They fired Nate McMillan, who was good, but he had but Nate McMillan is a lot like Tibbs. He's good at very specific things, and generally speaking, there's a limit to that. right? There's a ceiling
Who
limit.
they
However you
hire
want to phrase
again?
it.
This shit went
Yeah.
south?
No, so then they hired the guy from fucking I think it was Toronto. I forget his name, whatever it was. He was terrible. He was terrible. They
Also,
fired him.
also, their process was shit. Remember that?
Yeah, they knew each other before. Whatever. The point is like
Well,
they
like you
hired a
can
guy.
know each other, but like if you look at if their shit was like not like our shit, where like, oh, our coach was fine, and all the other coaches were also pretty good as well. Like they clearly were like, all right, this is the guy we want. We're gonna bet our chips on him, and the shit blew up in their fucking face.
Yeah, and the point is ultimately like they made a bad hire.
Right.
It sucked for a year. And then they hired Rick Carlisle, and Rick Carlisle sucked for a year, but Rick Carlisle's a great coach. And guess what? They made a few moves, and now it
Yeah.
looks like they're headed in the right direction. But like the
We're
point
not
is
gonna
like,
be like set back to the Isaiah Thomas era just
yeah,
because
you're
the
not
worst case scenario happened.
the worst case scenario happens, you fire that kind of year. Like I don't think if the Knicks are still in a situation where they've employed a coach for 3 years and they fire him and everybody is like, "Oh my god, same old Knicks." Like that's pretty weird to me because coaches get fired pretty constantly in the NBA. Like Lawrence Frank won a championship and got fired 2 years later. You know, this is a league that there's not a lot of patience. There's not a lot of time.
Yeah,
And that
people
goes
act like the norm is like, oh, coaches stay put for 7 years. Like that's not
right.
how it works.
And the pressure isn't just on the coach. Like front offices are under pressure, executives are under pressure. So
Right.
it's not just about like, well, we like Thibs and he's good doing fine.
This isn't the
No.
fucking Yankees. You don't expect your coach and exec to be there for like till you fucking have grandchildren.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. So anyway, all right. Before we continue, the NBA season is heating up and there's still so many exciting possibilities. When I'm looking to get in on the action, I bet with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check this out. Right now, everyone can earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, total rebounds, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Download the app now, sign up with code TBPN, place a $5 pregame moneyline bet on any NBA team to win their game, and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code TBPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right. So if you want to talk about the centers, you can go for it.
Yeah, Jericho Sims. Shout out to Jericho. I thought he had a rough defensive game, but the last couple minutes, like the rest of the team, he put together a pretty great stretch. He had a foul, but that was like debatable. I didn't
It
think
was
it was
not
a
a foul.
foul.
It was not a
Yeah,
foul.
I didn't think it was a foul, and
Yeah,
that
I
was
can't,
probably
can't,
his
it's
worst.
so weird. It wasn't a foul, but like this motherfucker has no emotion. He like just he like didn't react. I'm like, dude, that's not.
Ever,
Yeah, like that was not a foul. How is your reaction just like
bro. He had the same face in the club. Remember?
it was crazy? Like it's like crunch time. It was like a play I think where we were up 4, and so you get a stop there. You get the ball effectively with a chance to go up 6 with like a minute left. And I'm like, how is that your reaction, dude? Like, what the hell?
He's like one of these like stoic Game of Thrones characters or something. He just goes about his work, and he has the same. It is that shit is crazy. It doesn't matter if it's a dunk, clutch play on defense, horrible play, foul, untimely, whatever. He's just stone faced. But no, I don't know. I just feel like it's. I shouldn't say it's weird because I understand why people prefer Sims to Hartenstein. Me and you have talked about it a lot. Hartenstein's glaring detrimental flaws are very, very obvious to anybody with any eyesight at all who watches the Knicks. He rebounds like a small child and generally is very unphysical most of the time, even when he's cooking. And his rim protection, effective though it is the doofiest looking thing ever. I for fun, I'm preparing this video on, it's mostly on Sims, but Hart features in it a little bit, and like it's so funny. Every example of him altering a shot at the rim, of Hart altering a shot at the rim individually, it's like, did he alter that or did they just miss? Because like every player misses sometimes, and then it just because it doesn't look like he really impacts it, but then you just see it enough, and it's like, oh yeah, he's kind of like this big doofy dude who's sort of in the way with kind of long arms, not Mitch long, but like kind of long arms and whatever. And he's just kind of around at the right time. He's a timing guy. Sims, like, he's a great rebounder. Obviously, his impact plays, his blocks, and his dunks fly off the screen. This motherfucker's shoulders be at the rim regularly. I just get it. I worry because there are lots of times when he plays good defense, like technically speaking, and it's just not enough, even when he does the right thing and he's in the right place, because unless he's full extension jumping, he's just not an obstacle at the rim. He his standing reaches 8'10", and no center is completely straight up during the game unless they're like Walker Kessler, who's like that's the best verticality I've seen of any young prospect in a while. But he has the dimensions, jackedness aside, of a power forward. So if he's not jumping, which maybe it's a post up, maybe it's him in drop, maybe, but like worrying about the ball handler as well. Like he's just not an impact player. And then you add on top of that, like a lot of centers with less experience, he's still learning the arts of pick and roll defense and like how to corral the ball handler, when to kind of stunt at the ball handler or stunt at the roller. And a lot of the times he really commits way too early unnecessarily to one or the other and leaves an alley-oop or a pass available because of it. It's a little bit weird because he's not even playing center half the time these days. And on any given possession on offense and defense, him and Hart, sometimes Hart might be in the corner, sometimes Sims might be in the corner, ready to crash on offense. On defense, sometimes Hart might be the one on Pirtle, sometimes Sims was the one on Pirtle, or what's the other white guy?
Zach Collins.
Zach Collins.
We should trade for Zach Collins. Apparently, that guy's fucking great.
I'm just happy he's healthy, man. I dead ass didn't even know he was on the Spurs because I just assumed he was out of the league for health issues, because this guy just couldn't, like, on draft Twitter back when he was like,
I love him.
He was very promising. He was very promising. So good for you, Zach Collins.
He's having a 56, 38.6 from three season so far.
I was impressed. I'm not gonna lie. The bar was low because I didn't know he existed still, but I was impressed.
Not bad. I mean, he's got like over those last two seasons with San Antonio. He
also is a lot more jacked than I remember him, which makes sense because it's been a couple of years since I checked for him.
He's last 2 years he is. Hold on. This is in like 1,057 minutes, 53% from the field, 36.5 from three, 75 from the line. Yeah, he looked good. He looked good both games we played him.